you know, almost like a mirage, you know. And this vehicle's coming. It's a Snap-on truck, a Snap-on truck. All right, and he's driving up there, so we wave him down, you know. And we said, "Hey, you just the man we want to see." And he said, "Really?" He says, "Y'all need some help?" I said, "Yeah." Hey folks, SC Closer here. Friends call me Vic. Got another Vic C story and tall tale to tell you today. This is a pretty interesting one. And this ain't probably going the way you think it's going to go. Back when I was in California, I bought a 1968 Chevelle Super Sport while I was out there in San Diego. I bought that, I think, from a place called Overland Motors or something. They were pretty good guys down there. And bought that car, and you know, it was an original car. It had the black and yellow plates on it, if you know what that means. And those were the original plates that came with the car. It's a collector's item now out there. And it had the big block 396 in it, bucket seats. That thing had power disc brakes, power, you know, and it had power steering, and it had a tilt wheel. That was one of the rarest options they had in a Super Sport Chevelle back then, was a tilt wheel. But I had tilt power steering in that car, which was kind of the most modern old car I had. But in any event, it was a pretty cool car. We had a lot of fun in it. I'll probably have a few stories about that old car, and I'll tell you at other times. But in this particular adventure with the car, I got to set this up a little bit first, though. I had issues with the car, and anybody's had a big block Chevy, you know exactly what I'm going to say. Those cars, the valve train, they have some issues with the valve train. Okay, the factory stock rocker arms are just these little stamped little rockers. These are what they call the rat heads, and the valves are staggered in them. So your rocker arms are all staggered and everything too, and the push rods kind of come up at weird angles on these things. It's not really that good of a design. They staggered it for head flow, I guess, but the way that they executed it, and the push rods and the angles and everything, wasn't necessarily the best execution of the design. Let's just put it that way. So, you know, it was not unusual that the car starts skipping, and it was because I had most likely a broken rocker arm. Occasionally you'd break the tip off of a push rod or something, but it was normally a rocker arm that would break. So I carried a couple extra push rods, and I carried 2 or 3 extra rocker arms in the trunk, and you know, and I had tools with me, and you know, it would break down on occasion, and I'd have to fix it, you know. So in any event, we were going to a junkyard, and it was out of San Diego a little bit, and it seemed like we were kind of getting up in the mountains, desert area, you know, out of town, and it was getting into some mountains, and we were trying to find this junkyard, and a friend of mine was with me, and he had a Chevelle also. That was Earl, and he had a 71 Chevelle Super Sport with a 402 in it, and that was a nice car. I think Earl still has that car, by the way. I talked to Earl not long ago, and he sent me some pictures. He said he still had it. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, Earl was with me, and me and Earl had been messing with his car one night, out racing it or something or another, and he snapped the little, I forgot what you call it. Like it's like a key. I forgot exactly what they call it, but it holds the ring and pinion gears together, and it kind of sheared that key off or whatever in there, and it was causing his rear axle seals to leak and everything. Anyway, instead of trying to rebuild all that stuff and everything, Earl decided he would go buy another rear end, and back in those days, you could still do that. We went out there to see if we could find it, and if they had one out there, I think we were going to buy it. And I don't remember if they were going to deliver it or if we were going to send somebody else to pick it up or something, but we weren't obviously carrying it back in my car. There wasn't really no room to do that. So anyway, we went up there and we found it, and we looked at it, and everything checked out on it and stuff. And so Earl went ahead and bought it, and we were coming back. And as we're coming back, the car started skipping really bad. And so I pulled off on the side of the road, and it said it sounded like something was rattling over on one side, you know, so we pulled that valve cover off, and sure enough, I had a broken rocker arm on that thing. And I was looking, and for some reason, I needed I think it was an 11/16 socket or something, and I didn't have one. I don't know what happened to it. It was missing. That's what I used all the time. I must have loaned it to somebody or something. I didn't have it. So we were sitting there looking at that thing, and I was like, man, I don't have the socket. Well, what are we going to do, And about this time, we looked, and there was a vehicle coming up the road, and we looked at it, and it's like, the heat coming kind of off the road, although it wasn't all that hot or nothing, but it was kind of like desert conditions, almost like a mirage, And this vehicle's coming. It's a Snap-on truck. A Snap-on truck. All right. And he's driving up there. So we wave him down, And we said, hey, you're just the man we want to see. And he said, really? He says, y'all need some help? I said, yeah. I was like, I need some tools, I'm working on my car. I said, could you sell me a 11/16 socket? I said, or, if I have to, I'll buy a whole set, or something like that. And he was like, well, I'm sorry. He's like, it's against our policy. I can't just sell you stuff off the truck on the street. And I was like, what? He says, no. He says, I can only sell this stuff, at garages and things like that, that I go to. He says, I'm going up here to the junkyard, and everything. He says, so, if you want to come up here and meet me up there, I can sell you something off the truck. I said, you're kidding me. I said, I need a tool, man. I'm stranded, I'm stranded. And he was like, well, I'm sorry, I can't sell you nothing off the truck. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So anyway, there was no way I was going to get this guy to sell me anything. So I said, well, fine, go ahead, leave. So he left. And so I went over there, and I was looking at Earl, and he's like, he goes, what are you going to do, Vic? And I was like, I said, I got an 11/16 wrench. I said, hang on a second. So I got the wrench, and it was open in on one and a box in on the other. So I took the wrench and I put it kind of down on the nut that was in there. And then I took a screwdriver and stuck it through the end of it and twisted it. And it stayed on good enough that I was able to get the thing off. And the broken one, I got it off, and then I put the new one on there, or spare one I had, I put it on there, and I just tightened it back down. And back then, we just let the car run, and we just adjusted to it, quit clattering. But I didn't really worry about adjusting it too much. I just wanted it on there where it worked, so we can get back. We did get it fixed, and I managed to fix it with just using the wrench. And luckily, those things aren't like super tight or nothing. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. You're out in the middle of nowhere, you broke down, and out of nowhere comes the Snap-on truck, and they won't sell you a tool. I told you wouldn't believe it.